My sister mocked my little side gig until she walked into the boardroom and saw my name on the wall. She thought I'd be her assistant. I was the CEO. You can disappear in plain sight if your family refuses to see you. The scent of grilled corn and mesquite ribs hung heavy in the air as I stepped onto the Hale family lakefront deck. Another July, another cookout. Laughter rippled across the patio. Kids darted between tiki torches and folding chairs. The lake glimmered in the background, golden and untouched. I stood by the gate for a moment, just watching. 38, a founder, a CEO, a woman who'd reshaped an industry. But here, I was still the flaky one. "Vivian!" my mother called, waving from the folding table where she and Aunt Cheryl were arranging deviled eggs. "We weren't sure you'd show up. Again." "Of course she did." Aunt Cheryl chimed in with a chuckle. "Can't resist the ribs. Even freelancers need to eat." I smiled, the kind of smile you practice in the mirror, to make sure it hides everything. Across the yard, my sister Elena was glowing. Cream sundress, oversized sunglasses, and a laugh engineered to sound effortless. She held court like she was born to do it. "Elena just got invited to interview with Lucent Bridge Technologies," Mom announced loudly, as if the trees should applaud. Aunt Cheryl gasped. "That AI company? That's major!" Elena beamed. "Lead strategy director? They reached out personally. I guess they finally realized I'm the whole package." I sipped my lemonade. Ice clinked against glass. Steady, practiced. 12 years of secrets behind one sip. "Lucent's founder is some genius recluse," Uncle Ray added. "Goes by initials. No one knows who she is. Probably a total killer." Mom nodded proudly. "I'm sure Elena will charm her. She always does." I didn't flinch. No one asked what I'd been doing. No one ever did. "Viv," Elena called sweetly. "Maybe if I get the job, I can sneak your resume in too. I'm sure Lucent has junior assistant roles." Laughter. Not cruel, just careless. That's worse. "You never know," I said softly. "Stranger things have happened." Dad walked by with a beer, patted my shoulder. "Still working on that, what was it, side gig, cloud something? Data architecture," I corrected, but he was already gone. Just then, Elena lifted her glass. "Wish me luck. Tomorrow I'd charm the CEO of Lucent Bridge, whoever she is." The crowd cheered. I smiled, counted backward in my head. 12 hours, 17 minutes. That's how long until she walked into a boardroom on the 62nd floor, until she saw my name on the wall, until she realized the woman she'd mocked, the shadow she never saw, was the one running her future. I raised my glass, too. "Two new beginnings," I said, and meant every word. They say families build you, but sometimes they just bury you. That night, back in my penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, the laughter from the cookout still echoed in my mind like a scratch on vinyl. I sat by the window, fingers wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea gone cold. The skyline blinked back at me. Steel, glass, light, everything I'd built, and none of them knew. Not the woman who birthed me, not the sister who mocked me, not even the father who still thought cloud systems meant weather reports. I set the mug down, opened my laptop. Marissa, my executive assistant, had forwarded the candidate packets for the following day's final interviews. Subject line, "For your eyes only." I clicked, scanned, then stopped. There she was, Elena Hale. I let out a low breath. Polished resume, dual MBA, consultant work, internship at that flashy tech incubator. I knew exactly how she'd landed each of them. Dad's college buddy pulled strings for Stanford. Uncle Ray made that unpaid internship sound like gold on LinkedIn. The recommendations? all favors. Every bullet point glistened like a mirage. It looked impeccable, but I'd lived long enough to know the truth behind the gloss. "You have to be kidding me," I whispered. And yet, I wasn't surprised. She'd spent her whole life assuming doors would open just because she knocked. Now, she was about to walk through one more, straight into mine. I leaned back in my chair, my reflection caught in the window, half lit, half shadow, just like my name had always been. V.E. Hale. That's what the world knew me as. Initials, an acronym. A protective veil I'd woven over a decade, so my work would speak, not my history. Journalists guessed I was a recluse, a perfectionist. Some even suggested I didn't exist. Let them wonder. Let them write me off. That anonymity gave me space to build, while they thought I was flailing. Until tomorrow. Tomorrow, Elena would walk into the executive floor of Lucent Bridge Technologies. She'd sit across from a glass wall, smiling, rehearsed, and she'd see me. Vivian Hale, CEO, founder, the very woman she'd offered to get a junior job for. I opened her resume again, read it slower this time. "This will be educational," I murmured, a smile curling as I hit save. But beneath that smile, resentment, tight, deep, still smoldering, the kind you don't show, but build empires on. Power doesn't always wear a name. Sometimes it wears initials. The morning sun spilled across my concrete floors, turning the steel countertops into mirrors. I stood barefoot in the silence of my penthouse, 38 stories above the city that once ignored me. My phone buzzed on the marble counter. Marissa, always punctual. Lucent board meeting at 9, followed by interviews. PR team wants to confirm your stance on press visibility next quarter. I stared at the message, pressed my finger on the screen, typed 2 words. Let's begin. For over a decade, I'd built this company as a shadow. V.E. Hale, founder, architect, cipher. The media tried to guess. Was I a reclusive genius, a ghost founder, a man I never confirmed, never denied? The anonymity was intentional. It gave me room to operate, to scale without scrutiny, to build while no one was watching. But lately, that veil felt more like armor that had served its purpose. I crossed the apartment to my study, pulled out a velvet-lined drawer. Inside was a nameplate, heavy, cold, clean, Vivian Hale, CEO. I ran my fingers across the engraving. It sparked something in my chest, not pride, not fear, resolve, because tomorrow the world would know, and today I would start peeling back the mask. "Are you sure you want this?" I turned. Marissa had entered quietly, as always. "The alias gave you control. You step out now. There's no going back." I met her gaze. This was never about hiding. It was about building. She nodded, paused. "Is this about justice or vengeance?" I smiled. Maybe both. I slipped the nameplate into my bag, smoothed the front of my blazer. I'd always preferred sharp lines, minimalist cuts. Nothing loud, but everything precise. Like me. Lucent HQ shimmered in the skyline. Glass, steel, and clarity. All built by hands they thought were fumbling. Marissa followed me to the elevator. "Boardroom prepped. Interviews staggered. Your sister's slotted for 11 o'clock. Final round." I didn't flinch. "Does she know—" "Not a clue," she replied, smirking. "Reception says she was already tweeting. Something about revolutionizing the company." I exhaled slowly. Of course she was. Any other notes from PR? Marissa checked her iPad. "Wired magazine wants confirmation for your keynote photo. They'd like to include a full facial reveal. Title locked in, The Quiet Architect." I paused. That headline, it said everything. Schedule it for October, I said. After the dust settles. Marissa looked at me again. Longer this time. They're not ready for who you really are. I tilted my head. They never were. And with that, I stepped into the elevator. Doors slid closed, 12 floors down, and one reckoning closer. Behind a one-way mirror, I watched my sister try to sell a version of herself even she didn't believe. It was 9:52 a.m. I stood in the observation suite above the executive interview floor, arms folded, heels planted, gaze steady. The room beyond the glass was sleek, clinical. Mahogany table, chrome chairs. Nothing soft, nothing forgiven. And there she was, Elena, dressed for the kill in her designer blazer. Hair pulled tight, lipstick bold. Everything about her screamed confidence. But I saw the truth. The fingers clenching her leather folio, the darting eyes, the laugh that cracked just slightly on the second syllable. She looked prepared, but not present. She's here early, Marissa whispered behind me. 22 minutes, practicing smiles in the lobby mirror. I nodded. Let her wait. She took her seat in front of our first interviewer, introduced herself like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. Maybe she had. What excites you about Lucent Bridge Technologies? Innovation, she said instantly. And the chance to lead transformative strategy at scale. I raised an eyebrow. Her voice was clear, but her eyes didn't match it. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? At the forefront of AI integration, ideally as a VP, maybe even Chief Strategy Officer. Ambitious, predictable, empty. She wanted the room to believe she'd already arrived, but this was Lucent. We didn't hire for polish. We hired for depth, and I knew she didn't have it. You're watching her like a hawk, Marissa said softly. I didn't respond. I kept watching, not just as CEO, as the woman she once told, maybe you'll land a junior assistant role. The next round began, a more technical interviewer. Elena's answers faltered. The words were there. The meaning wasn't. She was slipping, and she knew it. I almost felt bad. Almost. Because what she thought would carry her, charm, confidence, brand names, was crumbling against real scrutiny, and I hadn't even entered the room yet. Marissa cleared her throat. Want me to prep the final session? I nodded once. Send her to my office. She paused. You sure you're ready? I smiled, calm, focused, unshakable. I've been ready for years. Marissa disappeared through the side hall. I turned back to the glass, watched as Elena stood, gathered her things, forced a final smile that didn't reach her eyes. I traced my finger lightly down the cool surface of the mirror. She couldn't see me, but I saw her, saw everything. And now, she was walking straight into a truth she'd never imagined. The quiet before truth always feels too quiet. I stood with my back to the room, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office on the 62nd floor. From here, the skyline of Seattle looked like it belonged to me, and in many ways, it did. Lucent Bridge headquarters stretched across the horizon. The entire west wing of this floor was mine. Private, unreachable, untouchable, the door clicked open behind me. Heels on polished concrete, measured steps, then silence. I didn't turn. Please have a seat, I said. There was a pause, then the soft sound of leather shifting. She sat. I took one breath, then another, and finally, I turned. Her face froze, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, color draining like paint in water. You, she whispered. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. Really looked. The girl who'd once rolled her eyes at my freelance projects. The one who told Mom I was wasting potential. As if she'd ever understood mine. Now she was sitting across from me, in my office, at my table, and she had no script for this. "Elena," I said calmly. "Welcome to Lucent Bridge." "No," she breathed. This can't be right. You're nobody. You're..." "Careful," I interrupted, my tone quiet but sharp. "You're in a glass tower. Things break. Easily." She blinked fast. "But how? Mom said a lot of things." I cut in. She looked down at the folder in her lap, my initials embossed in gold. Her fingers trembled. "You're V.E. Hale? You built this?" I nodded once. No pride, no malice, just fact. "From the ground up," I said. "While you were pitching startups you didn't build, I was writing code that rebuilt supply chains. While Dad laughed about my little cloud thing, I was closing Fortune 50 contracts." She was shaking her head now. "You hid this from us." I tilted my head. "No," I replied. "You never asked. None of you did." Silence stretched. She swallowed hard. "So, what now? You going to humiliate me? Ruin my chances out of spite?" I leaned forward slightly. "You already did that yourself. I watched your interviews. Every word, every gap, every assumption. You thought your name would be enough." Her face tightened. "This isn't fair," she said. "You built a company," I said. "While being dismissed, mocked, and erased by my own family." I let that hang, then stood. "This interview will conclude in 5 minutes. I suggest you use them wisely." Her jaw clenched. "I don't need your charity." I nodded slowly. "Good, because I wasn't offering any." The clock on the wall ticked louder than the silence between us, and in that silence, she saw it. The awards behind me, the framed headline, the power, all of it mine, and none of it for her. Some interviews are about qualifications. This one was about truth. I sat across from Elena, hands folded, voice even. Her confidence had cracked in the hallway. Now, it was collapsing in real time. "Let's begin," I said. She shifted in her chair. I wasn't expecting..." "To be held to a standard? Or to be seen?" She blinked. Hard. I opened her portfolio. "You listed strategic oversight at Mendel Analytics. What was your biggest contribution to that team?" She hesitated. "I coordinated quarterly insights, presented dashboards to the executive team. I helped shape roadmap initiatives." "Which initiative specifically?" She flinched. The client churn model." I raised an eyebrow. "That model was already published in Mendel's 2021 open white paper. You repackaged it for slides. Did you contribute to the algorithm itself?" Her silence answered for her. The air thickened. Unspoken truths hung between us like storm clouds. "Let's talk about leadership," I said. "How would your peers describe your decision-making?" "Efficient," she replied quickly. "Driven, collaborative." I tapped a note. "And yet 2 of your references marked you as non-responsive to feedback and over-reliant on presentation over substance." She flushed. "That's not fair. Those were office politics." Politics don't matter here," I cut in. "Only capacity does." I watched her shrink by inches. The blazer, the heels, the script in her head. None of it could save her now. This wasn't Mom's dining table. This was my boardroom. "Why Lucent Bridge?" I asked. "Because I admire your work, the way you've stayed in the shadows, still changing the landscape." She forced a smile. "It's genius, really." I tilted my head. "Is it still genius, now that you know who I am?" Her breath caught. I didn't mean... You meant to impress a name, not understand a mission. I stood, slowly. Her eyes tracked me like I might shatter the floor beneath her. This company wasn't built on connections. It was built in silence. While I coded at 3 a.m., while you were at launch parties. Her voice was smaller now. I didn't know. I thought... Exactly. You thought. You assumed. You never asked. I walked toward the window, let her see my reflection in the glass. 4 senior VPs reviewed your interview, independently. They all said the same thing. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Shallow, overconfident, lacking depth, not ready. The silence cut sharper than any word could. She lowered her gaze. So this is it. I'm out. I turned back to her, calm, certain. You were never in. I reached for the intercom. Marissa, please escort Miss Hale out. Yes, ma'am. Elena rose shakily, shoulders hunched, steps clumsy in heels that no longer gave her power. She paused at the door. Does Mom know? I smiled faintly. She will. And as the door closed behind her, I exhaled, not with vengeance, but with release. Because this interview wasn't about hiring. It was about ending the story they told themselves. About me. Silence doesn't always mean absence. Sometimes it's control. By the time I returned to my office, my phone was already vibrating on the desk. 16 missed messages. 3 from Mom, 1 from Dad. The rest? Family group chat. I didn't open them. I sat down, crossed my legs, and reached for my tea. Still warm. Still mine. She's gone, Marissa said, stepping in quietly. How did she take it? Marissa raised an eyebrow. Let's just say the lobby mirrors may never recover. I smiled, not smug, just calm. VP panel feedback? Marissa handed me the printed summary. 4 evaluations, 4 rejections, unanimous. Overconfident, underprepared, lacking self-awareness. I scanned the words slowly, letting each one land like a soft drum beat. Exactly what I saw. Exactly what I knew. No need to respond, I said, sliding the paper back. Marissa tilted her head. You're sure? I nodded. Let the silence speak. The phone buzzed again. Mom. What kind of stunt is this, Vivian? You broke your sister. You embarrassed the family. Dad. You call this leadership? Revenge. Grow up. Fix this. I took one deep breath, then flipped the phone screen down. Enough. Let them spiral. Let them blame. They never once asked what I was building, but now that it threatened their image, suddenly I was visible. You okay? Marissa asked. Better than ever. She smiled. Also, this just came through. She handed me a tablet, a preview email from our PR agency. Subject line, Wired Magazine final cover. Vivian E. Hale. Thumbnail. My face. Full view, strong, sharp, unapologetic. Headline locked in. The Quiet Architect. I stared at it for a long time. This was the moment they couldn't erase. Send the physical copies to the list, I said. Marissa blinked. The family list? Yes. With a note? No. She smirked. Cold. I looked up at her. Number clear. Marissa tapped her tablet and walked out. The hum of my office filled the space, software steady, efficient. Unlike the chaos unraveling on the Hale family text thread, my cousin was asking, is this real? Is Vivian really the CEO of Lucent Bridge? Aunt Cheryl replied, apparently she's been running it for years. Forbes is doing a feature. And Mom, still typing, still trying to turn my boundaries into betrayal. I picked up my phone one last time, typed a single reply. You raised me to succeed. Congrats. Now you get to live with it. Hit send. Then powered the phone off completely. I wasn't here to explain myself. Not anymore. Let them process. Let them spin stories. Let them sit in the vacuum of their own assumptions, because I had work to do, an empire to lead, and a truth that no longer needed hiding. Turns out, the shadow they ignored built the stage they now stand on. The Wired magazine cover hit newsstands on a Thursday. No countdown, no teaser, no coming soon, just me, face forward, eyes level, suit sharp as a blade. Behind me, the skyline I helped shape. Lucent Bridge headquarters. Clear, towering, unmistakable. Headline: The quiet architect, Vivian Hale, breaks her silence. They didn't even use a subheading. They didn't have to. I'd sent 12 physical copies, one for each member of the Hale family. No note, no message, just the truth. Let that be the explanation. Let that be the apology they thought they were owed. Marissa walked into my office, holding one of the magazines. "It's everywhere," she said. "Top trending on Twitter. Every news outlet picked it up. The CEO no one saw coming." I nodded. "They saw me. They just didn't look." She placed the magazine on my desk. "The board's ecstatic. Investor calls are flooding in. Global AI Forum just confirmed your keynote next week." I smiled. Not because of the attention, but because, for once, I didn't have to hide. My phone buzzed again. I didn't pick it up, but I could see the preview text. Mom. "What kind of stunt is this? You're humiliating us. How long have you been lying?" I almost laughed. Lying. Number I'd simply chosen silence over struggle, distance over desperation. And now, that silence was louder than ever. "They still don't get it," I said quietly. Marissa sat down across from me. Maybe they never will. I turned the magazine toward her. But the world does. Later that day, I walked into the executive dining lounge. 3 department heads stood up instinctively when I entered. "Congratulations, Ms. Hale," one of them said. "Incredible piece. Didn't know half of it. You built this, while carrying all that?" "Every day," I replied simply. Their respect wasn't performative. It was earned, and I could feel it shift, like the ground settling beneath me. For the first time, I was no longer invisible. As I rode the elevator down that evening, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. I didn't look tired. I looked anchored, like a woman who'd walked through fire and decided to stay warm. When I got to the garage, I paused beside my car, texted Marissa, "Move up the keynote speech. Let's give them the real story." Because I wasn't done. Not yet. Next week, I'd walk on stage, face unblurred, name undisguised, and speak in front of thousands. And for once, Elena would be in the audience, not the spotlight. One RSVP had come in with her name. No message, just a seat, quietly reserved. Good. Let her watch. Let them all watch. Because this time, I wasn't just the sister they forgot. I was the architect of everything they couldn't see. No one ever asked what I was building. So I stopped offering answers. It was the morning before the Global AI Forum. Lucent Bridge buzzed with activity, banners going up, media teams setting angles, interns running logistics in coordinated black polos. And yet, the moment I stepped onto the executive floor, everything paused. A junior analyst held the elevator for me. A department lead straightened his tie. 3 executives nodded. Subtle, respectful. They weren't reacting to a title. They were responding to truth. For the first time, everyone saw me, and not as Elena's sister, not as the artsy freelancer, not as the family footnote. Just me, Vivian Hale, Architect, leader, visionary. Funny, isn't it? They talk so much now. But for years, they never asked. Never asked what kept me up until 3 a.m. Never asked what I was coding, what I was fighting for. They assumed silence meant surrender. But silence was my strategy. Because when your family frames your ambition as delusion, you either shrink into their comfort or build in your own shadows. I chose the second. Walking past the glass walls of my company, I caught glimpses of meetings, brainstorms, visions in motion. Every inch of this floor was shaped by the woman they once called drifty, software unfocused. And now, those same traits had become my strengths: intuition, pattern seeing, stillness under pressure. They said I was too quiet. Now I ran a firm that made the world listen. Marissa caught up to me near the conference suite. Your speech is prepped. TED style. No slides. Just you. Perfect. She hesitated. Did you see the RSVP updates? I nodded. She's coming. You sure you're okay with that? I looked out toward the open lobby. Banners rippled with my company's insignia. Let her see, I said softly. Because this wasn't about hurting her. This was about finally existing beyond her story. I walked into the final prep room, sat at the head of the table where my speech lay in front of me. 2 pages, single-spaced, written in the voice that had once only lived in the margins. My voice. On the table beside it, a copy of the Wired article. Headline bold. My name. Full and untangled. I ran my fingers along the page. Not for vanity, not for applause, but for memory, because this was the proof that I wasn't imagining their dismissal. It happened. And I rose anyway. I picked up a pen, wrote 3 words in the margin of my speech. They'll know now. And I meant it. Not in the way they feared, but in the way they never allowed. They'll know that the girl they mocked for dreaming was the woman signing their future into motion. They'll know I didn't need to scream, because what I built now speaks louder than they ever did. As I stood to leave, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass wall. Not blurred, not shadowed. Whole. You don't have to scream when your name lights up a skyline. It was midnight. The city glowed beneath my penthouse windows. Glass towers blinked like quiet applause. And just above the North Tower, in bold white light, Lucent Bridge Technologies, that name once meant strategy, data, infrastructure. Now it meant me. The global AI forum had wrapped hours ago. Standing ovation. Press wall. More business cards than I could carry. But it wasn't any of that that stayed with me. It was the empty seat, 3rd row, far left, marked E. Hale, reserved, never filled. She didn't come. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she finally realized this wasn't her story to control anymore. And for the first time, I didn't care. Not with bitterness. Not with pride. Just peace. Because this entire journey wasn't about them. It was about reclaiming the space they taught me to shrink from. I walked barefoot across the marble floor, glass of red wine in one hand, the other brushing the edge of a sculpture I'd bought the week Lucent crossed $1 billion in valuation. It was abstract, jagged, beautiful, like me. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from an unknown number, just a photo. My face on the cover of Wired, folded open on a kitchen table that looked hauntingly familiar. Beneath it 3 words. We were wrong. No signature. But I knew. I knew. I didn't reply. Some truths don't need answers. They just need to be witnessed. I stepped out onto the terrace. Wind gentle. Sky clear. Seattle slept below me. And above it all, my name carved in light. I raised my glass. To the girl they underestimated. I whispered. And the woman she became, anyway. Then I laughed. Software. Full. Free. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't even proving anything now. I was just here. And that was enough. The city pulsed with a quiet rhythm. Trains humming, elevators climbing, headlines shifting. And in the middle of it, I stood still. Not as the forgotten daughter, not as the footnote, but as the author, the architect of my own legacy. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I'd build more, not for validation, not for applause, but for the next girl in the shadow, the one they're still laughing at, still underestimating. She's watching. And I want her to know we win, quietly and permanently. I used to think success had to be loud, that maybe if I just tried hard enough, shouted louder, or proved myself faster, they'd finally see me. But, over the years, I realized some people only hear what fits their narrative. And for people like us, the quiet ones, the late bloomers, the misfits, it's not about screaming over them. It's about building something so undeniable, the silence becomes its own thunder. I stopped waiting for applause and started writing code at 3 a.m. I built in shadows. And while they laughed at my side hustle, I was laying the foundation of a global firm. So, no, this wasn't about vengeance. It was about truth. And the quiet satisfaction of standing tall while they finally look up. To anyone watching this who's still grinding in the dark, don't quit. Building because the skyline's not just for the loud, it's for the relentless. Thank you for watching Vivian Hale's story. If you've ever been underestimated or dismissed, drop a fire emoji in the comments. I read everyone. Don't forget to subscribe for more true cinematic stories of quiet revenge and personal power. Share this video with someone who's building in silence. Let them know they're not alone. We rise quietly, and we rise for good.